Hello, my name is Jackie Morreale, and I'm the host of Wisdom for Wannabes, a new podcast series that seeks to discover wise words in business, beauty, and betterment. Today's focus is the topic of business by way of entrepreneurship in the construction management industry in New York City and beyond. I have the good fortune of knowing our guest by way of two worlds colliding through the New York City construction management industry and also as a fellow colleague undertaking a PhD degree in business. Woo!
Yeah.
Go Owls! At Florida Atlantic University as part of this year's incoming cohort. It is my pleasure to introduce today's featured guest, William S. Parrish Jr. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bill.
Thank you so much, Jackie. This is a pleasure. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Well, I love when I meet somebody and we just click. And then we dig a little deeper and we find out, wow, we actually have all these connections and so many things in common. Some things are just meant to be. Let me brag a little bit about you, Bill. William S. Parrish Jr. is the founder, president, and CEO of Noble Strategy, a certified MSDBE firm serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area that delivers professional construction management services consisting of owner's representation, project inspection, estimating, safety analysis, scheduling and project program technology management to public and private entities in the K through 12 education, civic, and corporate sectors.
Yes.
Bill, you have 40 years of experience in construction management, consulting, workforce development, and training. LEED 2.0 accredited professional. Bill has consistently coordinated and delivered large-scale, multi-stage agency owner facilities where success depends on the balance of environmental sustainability, community stakeholders, civic representation, agency resources, and technical staff. It is like balancing on a tightrope in construction. There are so many things going on.
I was the director of design and construction for Newark Public Schools, which is the largest school district in New Jersey. This was right after some legislation was passed that allowed the state to build schools for these underrepresented, underserved school districts. It was a case, Abbott versus Burke. Basically, they set aside $8.6 billion to rebuild these schools in these underserved areas, Newark being one. We had a long-range plan to build 40 new schools. I was kind of in charge of architect selection. When they came in to talk about how we're going to approach the new design, there was all of this buzz about sustainability and LEED certification and energy conservation. I just said, I can't sit here in these meetings and not know what these guys are talking about.
Exactly.
Right? That designation, is largely held by architects and engineers.
Yes.
Because they're physically doing the drawing and the calculations. But I said, I'm going to study, I'm going to take the test so I can speak the language. And I did that in 1990. I did that in 2000. I maintained the accreditation since then. As a matter of fact, we have to have 30 credits every 2 years. I just renewed in July. So I'm still holding that accreditation. I use it as a bit of a differentiator in business. You have to have something that allows you to pull ahead of your competition at some point.
This seems like an example of your entire life and kind of how you do things.
Yeah.
You want to speak the language, you want to understand. If there's an accreditation, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
Let's start off with some background questions. So tell me your full name, your hometown, and your current location.
I'm William S. Parrish Jr., but in conversation is Bill. But you write a check, you have to write William.
Love it.
I'm from East Orange, New Jersey, probably 20 minutes west of Manhattan.
Yeah.
25. It'll still take you 90 minutes to drive in on some days. And I'm in North Jersey now, about 20 minutes west of Newark Airport. Still in the same area and excited for all opportunities on the table.
Are you mostly working on the New Jersey side or into the boroughs and New York as well? Or it just depends on the project?
So since the pandemic, we pulled back from New York. We've been solely in New Jersey. Prior to the pandemic, we had an office in Harlem for 10 years on Frederick Douglass Boulevard between 138th and 105th Street. Mm-hmm. That really aided our growth, in addition to our office in Newark at the time. New York, small business just felt like it had a different pace. The businesses were more in tune. My first trip to lobby legislators was in New York. Party business excursion to Albany on lobby day. I didn't see that thrust in New Jersey. And people always talk about New Jersey and all the municipalities and home rule and how everybody is so segmented. By some counts, there's 600 municipalities in New Jersey, right? I just never saw the cohesiveness and thrust for small business the way we saw it in New York. That's why we opened an office in New York.
Makes sense. There's so much opportunity and there's so much building in New Jersey. Different, right? A little more spaced out, obviously, than Manhattan. But so many opportunities.
Our focus right now is New Jersey, specifically North Jersey. Our last several projects have been in Newark specifically because now, in addition to public and private commercial clients, we've been doing a lot more with nonprofits. I'm surprised at how robust some local nonprofits are in terms of funding and programming. Some have lots of real estate, some have multiple schools, and we found another niche to target in the nonprofit sectors. I'm glad about that.
Your work that you did as the director for Newark schools with the 40 school, was that a launching point where you started Noble Strategy? Was Noble Strategy, a result of any particular project or just, time in your life where you wanted to branch out?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to start my own firm. And people always said, before you do that, go work for someone else. You need experience, but I also learned you need relationships because people do business with people they know. I got to Newark Public Schools in 2002, knowing that I wanted to start my own business. So I started it. I had been counseling businesses about getting any advantage you can get. So if you can qualify for a disadvantaged business enterprise certification, get it. Or minority business or small business. The key to all of those was you had to be in business at least 3 years. When I say be in business, you had to file taxes. I started that in 2002, and I worked for the district knowing, unlike some people who work in a school district, I wasn't counting years to retirement. After 2-3 years, there's going to be something else I got to do. Once I got my first certification, which was with New Jersey Transit for DBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, I put my plan together and I left the school district in 2005 to start my full-time job. People always talk about being in business, and some people say, well, you're never really in business until you have to make payroll. Because there are quite a few businesses that are just one person, some with payroll or not. And other people say, well, you're not really in business until you get sued. And some people will say, well, you're not really in business until you miss a payroll. Right? That is something that happened to me when I worked as an employee for a minority-owned construction management firm. I said, wow, I never want anyone that works for me to have to experience this, but life happens. I've been able to learn and see and grow from so many opportunities and experiences that created kind of where we are and who we are as a solutions firm now.
Amazing. It sounds like COVID changed a lot of things, right? More localized to New Jersey area, but it sounds like you re-strategize and figure out how to make it work no matter what.
Yeah, you have to be, as an entrepreneur, available and open to pivot. Markets will change. Sometimes at these public agencies, we had multiple contracts at the SCA for probably 12 years. That's a long time.
That is a long time.
And sometimes people change and all of a sudden the consultants change. Sometimes it's a piece of legislation that changes what you're doing. I can remember when I first started the business, until the contracts came in, I had to get something done. So I was doing home inspections. It was going pretty well. I was working with a couple of attorneys who liked the way I wrote and made presentation, because in construction management, all we do is presentations. If you bought a house and you see the home inspection, they're not really high on presentation. I had gotten some that were just kind of checklist. So I started making these robust, graphically pleasing home inspections. I was able do that until the law changed in New Jersey that said your home inspector had to be working under a PE or to be an engineering training. So legislation will shift your market. In the case of COVID, these environmental issues will shift, and it caused us to go from 30 employees to none. So you can't just sit there. You got to find a way to pick the pieces up and pivot and move forward.
Let's talk about the grand picture of it. I know you've been in the business for 40 years. Describe to us in a couple words, what do you do now and what is your passion?
Our firm serves as eyes and ears for owners on construction projects, basically. Somebody who can understand and interpret architectural design, engineering issues, community issues, issues, building department issues, and then we have to motivate the contractors. When I say motivate, you have to know where to look to know that they're not on schedule. You have to understand scheduling. You have to be able to present recovery sometimes to a schedule or acceleration. You have to have the right techniques, and then you have to be able to synthesize all of these pieces and get everyone on the same page, playing the same sheet music to complete your project in the terms that your client needs. Most people think it's all, I got to finish on time. But some people, it's not finishing on time. It might be finishing on budget. We strive to do quality, budget, and schedule at every.
That's that sweet spot that everybody's trying to hit to get your timeline right, to get your schedule right, and also keep your price.
If you're building casinos, they probably don't care much about the money. But if they had to be open by September 1st and they recognize they lose $8 million a day every day they're not open, they're not going to be worried about the money. They're just going to say, get me finished on September 1st.
Exactly.
Whereas
no matter what.
a school would be different. They don't want to be in the newspaper because now all these parents can't go to work because the school is not open and it's embarrassing. That's a different set of issues. It's all based on your client knowing what is governing and how you have to operate.
At what point of a construction project are you usually part of the team? Are you there when they're breaking ground? We're talking RFPs, right? You're an expert at RFPs, responses to proposals. So you're there from the get-go, from the planning stages, breaking ground, through all the processes, through all the scheduling with all the different trades, making sure everything's working out perfectly, all the way to topping out, punch list finishing, and hopefully keeping that client and moving on to the next project.
Yes, ideally, we come in as early as we can. When the client recognizes they have a project and they want to select an architect, that's usually the beginning. We love to be there. In a lot of cases, we've written RFPs for architect selection. And assist them in selecting their architects. We manage the design process. Sometimes the architects go away for 10 to 12 months and they're doing all of these different phases of drawing development, and we monitor that and do constructability reviews to make certain everything is still tied into the budget, it's still tied into the client's needs and program. Then we go through to contractor selections. We would provide bid support. Once the bid goes out or the RFP for selection, then everything from pre-construction to pre-award, all the bond insurance requirements and taking care of all of that stuff, trade payment breakdowns to make.
You're even on the financial side. I mean,
Even on financial. Because
coverage.
part of the management is managing the finances. If you're on a $30 million building and the first requisition, the contractor says, I need $10 million, and you pay them, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So understanding what the value of the work is and how you should progress a contractor to keep them engaged, but also keep them engaged. Ideally, we are at the very beginning, but so often in the RFP process, an agency or an owner has already hired an architect, developed their program, and right before they go to try to find a contractor, they may say, well, we want somebody to manage the construction.
Right.
And that's when we'll respond to an RFP and get selected and then manage it from the design completion through the bid and through procuring a contractor and all the construction on site through closeout and move-in and tenant occupancy.
So what is your passion if it is one of these processes, or it could be even something totally unrelated to construction management?
I have to say my passion is teaching. I've been fascinated with construction since grade school. And I can remember those career days where they would come in with flashcards and they would show different occupations. I remember seeing a big flashcard where it was a construction site and there was a guy digging a hole and there was a guy standing on top of the hole with a hard hat and a suit and a roll of drawings under his arm, and he was just pointing in the hole. I said, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to dig the hole. I want to tell the guy to keep digging.
Exactly.
Until I realized how much money the guys make digging the holes. But
well, that's true.
Because on my first job, I was telling them to keep digging and they were making triple of what I was making.
Well, listen, the trades work really hard.
And they deserve it.
They deserve it. It's really hard on their body, too, a lot of times. So if you're going to bust your butt and make your schedule, it's worth every bonus. It's a lot of hard work.
It balances out the longer you stay in the industry and you can gravitate to the management side.
Exactly.
But for the last almost 20 years, I've been an adjunct at New York University in the Real Estate Institute, and I love to teach.
Yep.
I love to impart knowledge. I love to discover knowledge and learning is a fascination. I love to be able to impart it to someone, and mostly adult learners. I'm able to do that as an adjunct. I really enjoy that
Mm-hmm.
in my work. Then being able to see something from nothing.
Yes.
Construction is on a set of blueprints. There's a
Mm-hmm.
hole in the ground. And then 12, 18 months, you come back and it's a 14-story building. That's fascinating to me. I have a passion for it. Design and construction. I've always been fascinated by bridges and tunnels, but I've never
It's the
worked
right
on
place for
bridge
that,
tunnels.
huh? There's always the next project,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know how I would do now on a bridge. As you get
A
older, your
lot of risk.
inhibitions thin
Exactly.
out. So I'm not sure. I might have to just hold
Just
that away.
well, you never know. I'm pretty sure that you're a big picture visionary thinker, and if that's what you really want to do is to build a bridge, I know
Yes.
that that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by you. You have such
Thank you.
amazing vision and knowledge of the industry. You've been doing this for a long time, and now you're taking what you're doing and you're applying it and helping other professionals grow in their own careers. Isn't that just the trick to life, to be doing what you're really passionate about? Here you
It
are
really is.
doing it.
I would tell younger students when they're seeking mentors, find people in your field who have had some level of accomplishment because so often they feel an obligation to give back.
Hmm.
That's exactly what I feel. As an entrepreneur, I've always felt an obligation to give back. You made it to this point, you're obligated to go back and grab someone else and teach. Lifting as we climb, you know a little bit
Love
about
it.
that.
Lift as
You
I
know,
climb.
my fraternity
Yep.
implied motto, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, just give a shout
Yes.
for that. Gamma Epsilon chapter, which was Hampton University that I pledged in the spring of 1987.
Hampton is in Virginia, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes.
So most people, after you've accomplished, don't mind sharing. I use that even in my life. My mentors are folks who are extremely accomplished who try to transfer some of what they've accomplished down the line. And it's rewarding.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
not only have I benefited from that, but I take that approach as well. I want to benefit someone else as well.
Unstoppable, Bill. You got your hands in so many different things, and now you're going for the PhD. I can't wait to see what you do with it for this industry that really could use, I think, some visionary thinkers. I can't wait to see what happens with Noble Strategy as a result as well. It's going to take over the world.
Yeah, yeah. I've always been fascinated by technology's
Yes.
impact on our traditional business. When I went to grad school back in 1990, I said I want to see how this technology is going to revolutionize the industry. It certainly started back when we were going from bricks and mortar stores to clicks and mortar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then electronic services. I remember doing a project on a company called E-Steel. How can you e-steel? So hard and tactile. How do you make a technology, internet-based business out of that? But what they were doing was revolutionizing the way we buy steel in the industry. So you're not faxing, because back
Right.
then we were faxing price sheets for cold rolled steel and steel sheets and fabricators. All they did was create a vertical market with
Mm-hmm.
they made the transactions electronic. They were able to aggregate more information, more manufacturers, different types of
Mm-hmm.
fabrication, and then lower the price and then charge people to get on their information highway, if you will, this vertical
Exactly.
market. It was pretty fascinating. I'm still there. Now that technology is moving even more iterations, robotics is fascinating to me, and job displacement. There was a time when it was just the unskilled and low-skilled workers would be replaced by technology, robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. But now, even that's changing. I should think there'll always be a need for the master carpenter who's a cabinet maker or doing really custom woodworking. That's changing. That's changing.
See,
Where it takes us is going to be interesting.
So construction is an interesting industry in that it is, as you mentioned, brick and mortar. The Empire State Building was built with similar methods that we're using today. But when we think about innovation and technology, it's about the processes. It's about going lean. It's about using technology to optimize your schedule, keep safer construction site. There's so many different ways to use, I don't want to say AI, but technology
Yeah,
in construction management,
absolutely.
especially.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you, and I'm so curious as to how robotics could, help. Let's talk positive, right? Help
Yeah.
with trades and make their job easier and safer and quicker. How it would affect those who are managing a big project. Would it help you stay on time, or would it help it be a safer project, or generate more lead credits, or have end up being a more environmentally friendly, sustainable project at the end of the day?
In the early, talking about positive effect, in the early 90s, when I was an inspector on schools, most of the schools are old in New York City. They're all 4, 5, 6-story buildings. Masonry is crumbling. There are a lot of pointing jobs, rebuilding the masonry, parapets. To walk an exterior scaffold 5 stories up is pretty precarious.
Agree.
Even at 25, I was concerned. Now we can get in the drone up and do the
Right.
same inspection.
Right, drones. One of the things I learned at Turner was about a concrete core building. The idea that you could create this core at the center of the building that's so strong that the rest is unfolding around it and
Yeah.
is more stable. There's so much there. And I know you're going to build a bridge or a tunnel at the end of the day, and I know you're going to make it safer. I was in marketing, so I'm just covering what other people are doing, like the experts like you who are out in the field, but covering how they laid Hudson Yards, how they laid the
Yeah.
foundation, which now
Yeah.
has the incredible neighborhood that is Hudson Yards.
Absolutely.
Over active trains.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing thing to me, and how it's planned to such a degree that it can be done safely and managed correctly. It blows my mind.
We were actually a finalist for a workforce development contract
Okay.
on that. Ultimately, we didn't get it. We were like 1 or 3 firms. In our business, there's so much presentation and marketing, and it's all integrated. You can't just say what you're going to do. You have to show graphically for people who don't do it every day
Exactly.
what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how you're going to guard their interests. I love the industry. So much writing, technical proposals. When I teach, the first thing is I ask students to determine core competency. What is it that you do? In order for you to be selected for this 2-year assignment, you might have 20 minutes to explain to someone not only what you do, why you're the best at it, and why they should select you. If you're not sure exactly what you do, how can you
How
convince
can you
someone?
convince anyone? Exactly. Agree.
Yeah, so I know you've been in those presentations. I used to love going in our joint venture work with a lot of the large firms in New York. When we get to the meetings, the first thing the marketing folks ask is, where am I charging this time? You know, right? Here over in small business, everybody's just working. And the marketing
Exactly.
folks always like, I need a job code to
I need a
charge
job
this
code.
time to.
Well, listen, that's the side that I'm comfortable with. The nice thing about a big company like Turner is everybody's shifting roles, so everybody sort of understands the different
Yeah.
positions, whether it's sales, marketing, or it's estimating, which is, oh my gosh, a feat of science and math and so incredible. Purchasing, any sort of field safety,
Yeah.
superintending, project management, project executives, from top to bottom. There's such intense responsibility on each level along the way. It's a team effort,
Yeah.
and you inspire me.
Our cohort is 24, 25 people. To be able to come in and just continually connect with some folks is really great. And I think we've done
Exactly.
that. Fantastic personality and your expertise coming from the same places, not only region, but skill set makes it an easier connection. I think we're going to learn a lot from each other. I
Great.
think we're going to inspire each other, and we're going to get through this PhD
We're gonna
program,
get through it. Exactly. Exactly.
be newly minted in a couple of years.
I need you to keep telling me that in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years.
Right.
We got
It's
this.
gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Absolutely.
Then the world will change.
Right.
Anyway, let's learn more about you, Bill. You're this force of nature in the New York City, New Jersey construction management scene. You're an entrepreneur. You're also a teacher. You feel this responsibility to impart your wisdom on those who are still learning. Let's talk about the basics. So, what is your favorite food?
Yeah. I'm largely pescatarian and plant-based. I love the fact that at our school, we had Impossible Meatloaf on Sunday for lunch. I don't know if you recognize.
Was it meatless meatloaf? I didn't
Yes, it
even
was.
realize.
A couple people said I didn't even realize that was plant-based, and it was fantastic. I was very
Wow.
grateful to have those options. My favorite food is fried shrimp,
Ooh,
right?
that's a good one.
I have some sort of allergic response to, like, I can't eat cocktail shrimp for some reason.
So your favorite food also gives you an allergic response.
Right. So when I say favorite food, I'm quick to tell you how it has to be prepared, right?
I got it. Okay, gotta be
So that's why I
fried.
said fried shrimp.
Yes, gotta be fried.
I can eat grilled. I think it has to be like really overcooked and well done. And I love a good plant-based burger. So I have my favorite places that I go. I don't know if there are any NIL deals that could come out of this, but
Okay.
TGI Fridays, they make a great plant-based burger, and I enjoy that. You looked at me, you probably couldn't tell. I haven't eaten beef since 1988,
Oh my
and I
gosh.
haven't had pork since 1987. I stopped them both
Wow.
when I was in undergrad. Peer
Just
pressure, we started
for
reading and it
ethics
started
or
changing.
for
Well, it started as
health?
peer pressure. We were trying to outdo each other. We were competing on who could be healthier in my fraternity. So we started reading a bunch of
Oh
books.
my gosh. This fraternity sounds like the most amazing.
It's
Who tries to outdo each other in a
yeah,
fraternity for
yeah.
better health?
Yeah, yeah. So that's when I stopped pork and beef in 88. And then it was just kind of chicken and fish and that's it. I stopped eating chicken probably 4 years ago. My daughter, who is 24 now, at the time she was in high school, she stopped eating chicken. She was just asking questions like, where all the chicken's coming from? We
I
had heard
know.
stories about mass
It's
production.
sad when you think too hard about it,
Yeah,
right?
you can't. Somebody told me to watch this documentary called What the Health. I said, I'm not going to watch it because I'm sure after I watch it, I'm going to have to get off of some stuff that I really don't want to do. I'm still working to get off of sugar. If I get that one right, it lights out. I stopped eating chicken 4 years ago and I eat the same thing over and over. It's very boring. I do still like French fries. So I'm not on a total health kick. I'm trying to get better. Even though the plant-based burgers have some processing, I'm eating less processed foods.
Right. And it's got the flavor. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I would have turkey sausage or chicken sausage for breakfast every day.
hmm
Now I eat egg whites and spinach, egg white omelet with spinach. And the vegetable sausage, I don't even really like the taste of all of them.
The nice thing about being closer to home, I know a lot of things changed with COVID. I work from home. We're trying to not eat fast food as much anymore. It's really hard when you're on a job site, you're there early.
Yeah.
You're in the city, you're there late, whatever. It's just so convenient to grab
Yeah,
something that's
convenience is the word.
fried and something that's just bad for you at the end of the day, just to keep going. Maybe you're on a core and shell project and it's hot or it's cold, or you need to stay with it and you don't have time to really think about what you're putting into your body. The nice thing I think about being closer to home is you can decide to eat slow made food and stuff
Yeah,
that's better
you
for
have to
you.
plan.
Yeah.
And my wife doesn't allow me to have an excuse. She's
Mm.
saying there are just as many salad places as fast food
My
places.
kind of woman. Yes. There's no excuses. Salad.
And I'm saying, I've seen some of your salad. You should just have the burger.
It's true. It's true.
But
So how
yeah,
funny. Oh,
she
man.
certainly works to keep me on task. September 3rd is our 31st wedding anniversary. I'm very glad to have her.
Congratulations. I hope you guys have a nice big salad to celebrate.
I think I'm gonna put that on the list. I think I'm gonna put that on the list.
I said quickfire questions, but just talking about food set us off. Let's take it back. What is your favorite place in the tri-state area?
And certainly, I like water. Jersey, you can get to a waterfront pretty quickly. In New Jersey, one of the things we're becoming even more known for, other than the Garden State, is house music festivals. What's happening now is every municipality, because it's growing, wants to have a music festival where they're all free, there are food trucks out there, and there are DJs with these big sound systems, and people just come and dance for hours. Just release, just dance. No issues. And if you don't want to dance, you can just take your chair and watch. I like to be at the house music festivals. They're always out in the park. I get to smoke a cigar, maybe drink some red wine. What's better than that?
Is there a favorite house music festival somewhere?
I think the largest one is in Roselle. It's usually around the second week in July. I went and had a ball. Every year we say we're going to get a tent and we're going to have a cover with our chairs.
Professional music festival goers.
Yeah, and I never get all the way to the end. I don't dance the whole time. It's time for fried fish.
Of course there is.
So somebody selling funnel cake, I didn't have anything to do with that.
It's not an event without a funnel cake, though, really.
But yeah, a cigar and some wine and being able to dance, catch up with friends, and then just sit out there and watch.
Just enjoy.
That's a lot of fun.
I remember doing something like this at the place in Asbury Park, the Stone
Yeah, the
Pony,
Stone Pony or something
where
like that.
the boss was found. They would always have their stage open up so that if you're on the boardwalk, you could hear the music. And New Jersey has such an amazing vibe in the summer, especially.
Absolutely.
So creative, all outside.
Yeah.
I love the culture. I love the people in New Jersey. Yeah, I get that. That's your favorite
It's
thing.
the
So Roselle during a house music concert. Interesting. What is your favorite book? It can be yours, by the way.
It is. It is.
Yes.
Making bold moves.
Tell me more about your book.
Yeah. I always pick it as my favorite. Making bold moves, creating multi-million-dollar success in 500 days or less. It's the story of me quitting my job in June of 2005 at the school district. And a year and a half later, grossing $2.2 million in sales in construction management. That's the story. And it talks about how I did it, the courage it took for me to do it. I changed some names, but you're going to be very familiar with a lot of the scenarios because I talk about construction firms and RFPs. I can remember looking for how to get started. In New Jersey, there was a huge RFP for a state police facility in Trenton. It was a $100 million project. While I was still working, I got this plan. I started using my vacation days to do other things. I went to the mandatory pre-proposal meeting for this. I knew all the big firms would be there. I scanned the attendance lists because they sent you the attendance list looking for relationships, opportunities. I ran into a guy who worked for a big firm, and he was familiar with what I had done as an employee with other firms, but translating that to your own company is a little bit different. People need to understand that you can make that translation. He said, yeah, come see us. We're pursuing a whole lot of stuff. And he said, if you find something that we can work on, bring it to us. That was an open marketing thing. I said to myself, does this mean I'm doing like free marketing for this company? I'm going out finding opportunities for them. But if it means work for me and a connection and a relationship, then that's how I'll get started. And that's exactly how it started.
Everyone's
I had to get past that thinking and understand that they're allowing me to create my own path here, find something we can work together on. What was this contract at the SCA, a $30 million contract that they had not yet won? They had been very successful, but they had not yet won the contract. And me having these 11 years experience at the SCA, the thing I love about public agencies is people don't like the paperwork and the documentation and government. They say it's slow, but the process doesn't typically change. For that matter, the people don't typically change. Because if you work there more than 7 years, it pays for you to stay to retirement. You had early buyback and pension, all of that stuff. So you almost can't leave if you've been there longer than 7 years. The math doesn't work out. Believe me, we run all the numbers. If you have a decent reference and people know you, the people are the same and the process is the same, that's a built-in advantage. Exactly. I went to them with that advantage and I helped them win that $30 million contract. That was how we got started. Amazing. So the book talks about that. It even talks about how I got started.
How did you get started?
In chapter 1, I tell the story. I watch a lot of movies. In the movies, you have the disgruntled employee who's going into their supervisor. They're going in with a resignation letter in a portfolio. If something is said that they don't like it, and they rip out the letter, and that's it, I'm finished. I had seen that in too many movies. So I had received what I thought was an unfair evaluation. I went to the superintendent of schools who had hired me, who had a decent relationship with. I went to, hey, I'm really dissatisfied with this evaluation and I think something should be done. I went in with the resignation letter, understanding that she was the type that could just fire you on the spot. I knew if I went up to her office and maybe she didn't like something I said, it could be curtains for me. You remember Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Exactly.
Curtains. So I went to the meeting with the resignation letter and the billfold, and I got up there and I presented the case, and it just went totally a way I didn't expect. I didn't even have time to reach for the billfold. She didn't fire me. She just was like, the guy who did this evaluation, she said, I'm not getting rid of him. If you got a problem with the evaluation, then tough. Kind of. I left feeling very demoralized, and probably 3 or 4 days later, I get a call from the business administrator, who was a friend of mine. And he says, I heard you went to superintendent's office. What'd you do? I said, what do you mean? He said, what? You said something that pissed her off. What'd you do? Told her I had an unfair evaluation. He said, she's asking for your resignation. Your
Ooh.
last day is June 30th.
Is that really fair to ask for someone's resignation based
That's exactly
on
what happened.
standing up for yourself?
Right. That's exactly what happened. But I needed the fuel. Sometimes you need the fuel to be moved. If you're in a comfortable position, it's going to be hard to move. You're making good money and you're getting paid every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
As an entrepreneur, that is not always the case. That was my kick. I had calculated probably 90 days prior to me going into this meeting. I had gotten a certification. I knew what I wanted to do. I was starting to use my vacation. I was in
On your way
plan
anyway.
mode.
Yeah.
I was running the program, but I thought I would have more time than I did. I thought it would be my determination when I said I'm ready to leave. This wasn't the case. What I said evidently suggested I wasn't on the team anymore or part of the team. And, got to get rid of him.
Maybe you had already done some growing and you
Right.
just outgrew your role without even realizing it. The way you thought was different than the way you were before.
There's a pastor out of Maryland who would come to our church and visit. This is back when church service ends at 1:00. You can, on your way out, buy the CD of the service. You can go home, listen to not only the singing, but the sermon. I would play these sermons in my office. There was a sermon he preached called Doing 100 in a 30. It was about, you are in a place where you're going 100 miles an hour, but you're in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. Got to get out of there.
Agree.
You got to get out of there. You can't dumb yourself down. You can't slow yourself down. He said in the sermon, I pray that these people, whatever it takes to move them, get them fired or get them ready to move, whatever it takes to move them, I pray for this movement. That was on repeat for me for weeks. I was convinced that this was supposed to happen. I just didn't expect it to happen the way it did. I can remember feeling on top of the world, having gotten to that point where I'm now a full-time entrepreneur. This was at the end of the school year. School year ends June 30th. I got to leave on June 30th. Not that I don't care about what I'm doing, because the reputation is always important. But I felt like now I got like 90 days to start pulling out of this place.
If that altercation hadn't have happened, would you necessarily have had the fuel to get yourself out of there and propelled into this trajectory of having your own business and getting to where you did in the 500 days?
Yeah. How long would it have taken?
How long would it have taken?
Would it have been at the end of the school year? I probably would have kept making excuses.
Exactly.
I probably would have kept saying maybe now is not the right time. Sometimes in entrepreneurship, you have to be forced out of your comfort zone. Everybody says when you have nothing else to rely on, that's when you're going to get really serious and hungry about what you're doing. The first 2 weeks, I felt so good, like I quit my job. I'm still telling myself I quit my job because I was ready. Then after like 2 weeks, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, there's no more money coming.
Well, what's the name of this pastor, by the way, from Maryland? Sounds amazing.
Quite honest, he is. His name is Jamal Harrison Bryan. You start with the inspiration and the motivation, wherever you get it. I was convinced for a very long time that I wanted to be on my own, just didn't know exactly how to do it. Some people say, oh, go to friends and family. You borrow $200,000. I didn't have those kinds of friends and family, right? I did borrow some money from retirement to get started. And I also learned banks don't want to give new ventures money because you're not established. I had a banker tell me, I'd rather give you a vacation loan for $10,000 than a loan to start a business. Okay, so we're going to Europe. I want to take my family to Europe. Let me get the $10,000.
I didn't even know that existed, a vacation loan.
Yeah. Well, this was 25 years ago, but I'm sure it still exists.
Look, stuff like that has got to be fuel to the fire, right? You've got to take, any sort of no and flip it and make it that I'm on, and I'm going to push until I'm that example. I'm going to become that family member that when somebody needs something, I have it and I can provide it.
Yeah, it's one or the other. Either you're going to crumble or you're not. It really makes you tougher. It's a survivability thing. If you're going to exist and survive and thrive, you're going to have to be pushing and researching and being strategic, doing all of that stuff. Like I'm always exhausted.
You've been doing this since 2005, right, Phil? This noble strategy has been around since 2000, so 20 years. So in 2006, I started an apparel line. and I designed and made clothes locally in tri-state area for 4 years.
Nice.
I learned a lot. I failed a lot. I had a few wins, but it's so draining. Being an entrepreneur, we have to find ways of celebrating those wins because they're amazing. And when you're especially pioneering something and going into uncharted waters and trying to figure out how you grow, and maybe you change and maybe you don't want to do it anymore, but to figure out a method that you have in this book that you can drop everything and have that urgency to succeed and make it work almost immediately in 500 days, and then take that from a year and a half later to 20 years later, that is a success story, my friend. That's amazing.
It's like anything. You have to be committed to what you're trying to get done. That's just kind of always been the person that I am, that I've been accomplishing specific tasks. PhD is a specific task that I'm going to accomplish, which is part of my plan. You should always have a plan. Being an entrepreneur, you eat what you kill. You got to go out and hunt every day for your survival. As you get closer to retirement, I don't want to hunt every day. I want to hunt maybe on Mondays and Wednesdays. I got to be able to pivot.
We could obviously talk for hours.
Yeah. I like to talk too.
I want to talk a little bit more through the Quickfire stuff. Okay. And I'm just going to say it and you tell me what your answer is. And I won't go any further than that.
Okay.
I think I already know. Favorite type of music?
Hip hop.
Thought you were going to say house.
I was going to say house. I just wanted to throw you off.
All right, no. I'm not going to ask any more questions about
hip hop. I like hip hop. It's hard to dance to that for 3 hours, but I love hip hop.
Love it. Architect.
I got to say Frank Lloyd Wright. The whole Taliesin West thing is pretty amazing. And Michael Graves, I love the fact that you can be a starchitect, as they're called, design these fantastic buildings and tea kettles.
Guggenheim is amazing, like Frank Lloyd Wright. Anyway, I said I'd just keep it simple. So, favorite sport?
I'm going to say golf, believe it or not. I'm not very good, and that's probably why it's my favorite. You're always thinking about, when can I get out again to try to get better? I love football. I used to be a real fanatic, probably since I was 5 years old, watching the Dallas Cowboys, because my dad was a Cowboy fan. They have been so disappointing. They would lose on Sunday, and I would still be depressed on Wednesday. For what? The guys who just lost by 40 points are trading jerseys and high-fiving each other and praying together, and I'm upset for 3 days, and they're making 30, 40 mil.
And you're winning at everything else. So
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Agreed.
So I said, I gotta take a different approach with football. I like to watch college football. But I really don't want to watch a 3-hour game.
Well, I thought you were going to say a long distance running, but that is another
definitely
topic.
Not my favorite.
Definitely not your favorite.
Definitely not my favorite.
Favorite construction team to work with?
I had some really good experience with URS, which is now part of the AECOM family. I had some really good opportunities with URS. To be such a big firm, it's the people, right? So you can connect with people who are willing to make a difference and willing to give folks an opportunity.
AECOM is an amazing company in the industry as well. So that's nice to know that you had a good experience. Hidden talent.
Hidden talent. I don't know if I hide very well. I can draw.
Really?
I think that's what also interested me in construction and architecture, because I thought if you could draw, you could just come up with concepts of these buildings.
Yeah.
My first semester architecture studio, it was nothing like that. It was, you sit here with a mechanical pencil and you make title blocks and you draw shadow projections, orthogonic projections, and I didn't like it at all.
Very precise.
Sitting at a desk with a T-square for 3 hours every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I hated it.
So you started your undergrad as an architect?
I was an architect major.
Did you one of those people that have a bed and a pillow in the studio because the work?
So my dorm was across a field, this big lawn. The culture was you spent a lot of time in there. I think the thing that saved me is my freshman year at Hampton University, I played football. So I had somewhere else I had to be.
Good for you.
If it wasn't for that, I would have been in there all hours of the night. Fortunately, I found building construction technology as an option, and I switched my major after my freshman year.
Amazing. I didn't know you played football in school. You said you just like to watch football. But
as a matter of fact, fun fact, my freshman year, our football team won the CIAA championship in 1985.
Seriously? So is that the Pirates sign behind you? That's your team?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The Hampton Pirates.
Hampton
Where, the
Pirates.
school is surrounded by three sides on
Yep.
water. Our team is being inducted into the Hampton University Hall of Fame on September 6th.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Amazing. So you
so
going to Virginia?
yep.
Oh,
So
that's gonna be the
1985.
best.
I didn't play for 4 years. It was only my freshman year. After that, in college sports, it's like a full-time job.
Yeah.
And to
But
not be on
but
scholarship,
40 years later,
yeah,
you're called back to your undergraduate school for this season that you
I'm
guys
going to
won.
enjoy all of that.
Oh, you are gonna have a
All of that.
blast.
Yeah, I mean the camaraderie with
Yes.
teammates, and the experience. We won the championship. I didn't play a lot, but I made those guys better. I'm grateful for
Wow.
that. It's
What
a
an amazing
great
experience.
experience. That's the reason why I didn't spend more time in the architecture studio.
I think sports help keep your mind clear.
Yeah,
I mean, creative stuff too, but it sounds like the first year of architecture is just brutal. You
very.
need to have that release sports or whatever to get through and
That's where they
figure out what
also
you want to
tell
do.
you that you're not gonna make any money when you finish. It's a
That's
weeding out process. They tell you you'll make $8 an hour probably, and it's gonna be 7 years before you can take the test. They make it so it
you go
doesn't
into
look.
construction instead.
You guys
Because I
shouldn't get
heard the
that
same
speech with this
thing in
major.
construction.
Yeah.
It totally different role in the industry, but it really does go hand in hand. There is so much creative
Yeah.
stuff that happens. I was fortunate I got to work with the BIM team at
Yeah.
Turner and work on innovation. It was just so much
Right.
creative stuff happening in the industry, and you really can apply those skills in
Yeah.
different ways with 3D modeling and so much more.
You can.
Favorite university?
Dude,
Hampton.
Hampton. I graduated from Hampton. My wife graduated from Hampton. My son graduated from Hampton.
And your daughter, is
And
she there too?
my daughter, I offered to buy her a car, and she said no. And she graduated from Howard University,
Good for her.
uh,
Okay.
which is a great school.
Yes.
I guess she just felt she needed to take a different path.
Something different. That's okay. Everybody goes their
But
own
I
way.
love the school. There's still, believe it or not, some things you might not know about me. I did a documentary film on my Hampton University homecoming
You
experience.
know, the internet is a funny thing when you pick at the surface of somebody's YouTube channel and you see
Yeah.
their stand-up comedy and you see all these amazing hidden talents that you didn't even mention
Yeah.
when I asked you, or marathon running, all these cool things that you do. I
Yeah.
did see your Hampton documentary, and it looked like you interviewed alumni from many, many years and how Hampton impacted them. I
Yeah.
had no idea that you were a film director on top of it. I thought you were a collaborator. I had
I've
no
been
idea.
really
Amazing.
fortunate to have the drive and creativity to want to do something. Then I take my business acumen and say, well, how do you do this? I got to find somebody who's done this before. You surround yourself with the right people and you learn. I took 2 documentary film classes and then a documentary program at NYU.
Well, NYU's got the best, film directing and the whole program at Tisch.
Yeah.
It's incredible education.
The reason I did it is because I had been out of school 32 years and I had only missed going back to homecoming twice. You talk about favorite university, the university is very high in my life, not just on my list, but in my life. When I talk to friends of mine, I recognize that they don't miss the opportunity to go back either. So let me see if I can explore and explain this phenomenon of why people feel they got to come back to homecoming every year. It's only 3 days. It's usually in October. I'm going to miss it this year because I'm at Florida Atlantic University on the weekends.
Oh, this will be the third year you've missed.
Time in like
Bummer.
35 years.
Bummer.
I wanted to uncover what makes people feel like they need to come back. And so much of it is visiting the place where you matured. You go to college at maybe 18, 19 years old. You're in this place, you're forging these relationships. You don't have much, but you have great times.
Mm-hmm.
So 10, 20, 30 years after, you can go back to the place where you had your maturation and see those same people and recreate some of those memories and go to those same places. It's magical. It's magical. I really wanted to capture that.
That's really where you figure yourself out.
Yeah.
It's like reconnecting with your other people to reconnect with yourself.
People always said the best time of your life is when you're in college. When you're 19, 20, you don't pay
You
attention to
don't
it.
even realize it just flies, right?
But it really, really was a great time. And being able to flash back to that, even for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, no matter how much it costs. A friend of mine flew from Tanzania to come to homecoming. People pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 just for those 3 days.
And it's worth every penny
It's worth
because
it. So you feel
that's their happy
recharged.
place. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I'm surprised you're not building buildings at Hampton University right now.
I have a plan for that.
I'm saying, just seemed
Yeah.
like an obvious connection.
Yeah.
If Virginia's calling, especially since you have this expertise in school building, I would think that
Yep.
that would make sense to have a building with your name on it and that you built.
Well, for that, I got to pull the checkbook out. They don't care about me building anything.
That's true. Different thing.
That's
But
gonna be
to
a
know
while.
that you built it could be enough.
Speaking of checks, when I first started my business, one of the things I didn't want to do was be able to get back to Hampton. I read a lot of stories about entrepreneurs. I had seen this done with other people. So I wrote a check for $1 million to Hampton University that I couldn't give them. So I framed it.
But the simple act of
Yeah.
writing this beneficiary check to this place that meant so much to you.
Yeah.
I'm totally copying you on this one.
It's still on my wall, though. It's still on my
But
wall.
that's okay. But you can't think little if you have $1 million check written from you to some cause that is
And
important.
in my mind, I'm gonna manifest that. And one day I'm gonna break the glass and I'm gonna actually give it to him. Now I might have to
Exactly.
rewrite it
Might have
because
to
it's
rewrite
several
it,
years.
right.
But I did that. I did that because they say write your goals down. One of my goals is to be able to benefit this university to the tune of $1 million. Let me write it down
I can't
and put a
wait.
reminder up.
Yes. One day they'll be very lucky and they'll say, "Oh, thank you," and that'll be the end of it. But you know that you worked this entire journey to make it
Yeah.
happen. And it's very meaningful.
So you
I'm
have one
totally
you're
going to
gonna
copy
write
you
to.
on that.
You're gonna write one to who?
I would write it to my family foundation in benefit of my brother who passed from sarcoma cancer. And that's why I started running marathons. I started running marathons to benefit the foundation. And I used to try to get $1 a mile. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
maybe if I could do 26.2 and get enough people to sponsor, it would, be
Absolutely.
enough. So
Absolutely.
we just got to 6 figures for sarcoma cancer research. If I could write a check with that 7th figure, 8th figure, whatever, that makes me feel like I
Absolutely.
accomplished something.
I'm certainly sorry to hear about your brother, but understanding that you guys honor him regularly is great to hear. There's a New York construction titan who just wrote a book because his brother just passed away. He talked about the care that he was involved in and the advances and why there's not enough research. He just spoke at Fordham.
I would love to read it. It's one thing to build things, but then to be able to build a legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very intrigued by that.
I'm excited about your $1 million check. Get a nice frame too. Get a nice frame.
Exactly. I still have my first $50 from when I started my business. There's little tangible things that inspire you and keep you
Absolutely.
going. So tell me more about Noble's strategy. What is your company's role in construction projects? It can be specific to school construction authority, SCA, or any major client that you've worked with.
As bulk of our work is owner's rep.
Yep.
So we are in position to protect clients. We take that very seriously. It's all about how you approach the project. We always want clients to trust us because they got to have a level of trust to us.
Absolutely.
Contract. We believe taking a trusted approach, a noble approach, high principled, trustworthy approach is noble. And to take a noble approach, you could say it was a noble strategy. We are very strategic about how we put these things together to benefit the clients. That's how we came with noble strategy. We have been able to differentiate. In New York City, construction management, the legislation says 30% MWBE. You have a handful of minority-owned construction management firms already out there, and we're competing against each other. The differentiator, because we didn't see a lot of other people with, and we had exposure to it, was sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
Our most significant project is One World Trade Center, formerly the Freedom Tower, where we worked with Tishman as the sustainability coordinator. Even though there was a lead AP, lead accredited professional, as part of the design team, we found that on a lead project, in order to translate all of that stuff to contractors, you still need somebody on the construction end. Architects are going to design it via code and ASHRAE 90.1 for air. When it gets to who builds it, if the specifications say I need 30% recycled fly ash in the concrete. I'm making a chart, and I need to see the product data on the concrete.
Bill, so you were there as a native New Jersey and New Yorker to rebuild the World Trade Center.
Absolutely.
You have this level of understanding and specific knowledge of sustainability that you were able to make this project, I think is LEED Gold?
LEED Gold core
LEED
and
Gold.
shell. It was core and shell because all the tenant fit out came afterwards as they leased the building up. They still required to have LEED requirements because the builder, Port Authority, wasn't doing the fit out. We got the designation on what they call core and shell.
On the core and shell of One World Trade Center, the Freedom Tower, you are the sustainability expert that made this building become LEED Gold.
Absolutely. Worked there probably from 2006 to 2012. It wasn't a big assignment, but how do you turn that assignment down?
That's important. That's epic.
What's funny, when we first got on it, Tishman told us you can't talk about it.
Oh, really?
We were ready to do a monthly newsletter,
Yes, exactly.
and I think because of the building.
Look, it's sensitive because of what happened with it with 11. I'm sure they wanted to make sure everything was kept under wraps.
You can't promote, talk about it, no flyers, because we were ready to go. You know, this is great for a small company.
Yeah.
It's confirmation.
I think what we were talking about is you have all this learning, you have all this experience, you have a lot of responsibility that goes with it. Here you are pouring that back into this New York iconic building that will just shine in the sky for generations to come.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't get to be on the top of the building when they put the spire on, the last piece that made it the tallest building. I'm really afraid to be up that high, but it was fascinating. There's 6 levels to the basement. They had 2 teams. They had a superstructure team, everything from the ground up, and they had a foundations team, like 2 separate construction management efforts.
Just for the sub-level floors.
Yeah. But it was like a 6-story building.
Yes, exactly. Underground.
You know? Yeah. So that was pretty amazing. It was a great assignment. It wasn't one of those assignments that like, wow, we're going to be set for life in terms of finances, but it was so significant for the business to be able to attach ourselves to Tishman and Port Authority and One World Trade Center. Who doesn't know that project? So that was probably my favorite project. And then we have one other project. All the time I've been in the industry, never until this project, built a project and got a C of O in one shot.
It's practically impossible if you do any renovations to your own house just to get the C of O.
You go to TCO, and TCOs get renewed. I've seen in New York, TCOs get renewed for 10 years. But codes change, architects change. The first project we've ever built, I've ever been associated with, that did not get a TCO, it went from 95% to C of O. We built an $8 million veterans rehab facility in Astoria, Queens. Columbia's 25-year Manhattanville campus had to displace a bunch of businesses. In displacement, they relocate the business and give them money for headquarters. They displaced this Harlem veterans facility to Astoria, Queens. We built an $8 million residential rehab facility. I had a great engineering team. They had a great command of the building department, and we got a C of O.
Amazing.
Went straight to C of O.
Wow.
So that was...
So that was Astoria, you said? Astoria. That whole area of Queens has really just built up so much over the years. Harlem especially, right? Columbia is just taking up more and more space.
It's amazing what Columbia did.
Isn't it incredible? You're not only just building literally the landscape of New York City, the skyline of New York City, you're also building places that people need, that live there. These veterans getting displaced, how great is that they now have a brand new facility in Queens that's ready to be used?
Treatment and residential. I think it had 30 beds, and they got all the counseling and therapy and all the stuff in it. We competed against some big firms, but relationships, right? We had built a very strong relationship with the nonprofit and the executive director. When he got a chance to choose on this $8 million facility, he didn't pick the biggest firm.
Oh.
He picked the firm that he thought was the best fit.
with the noble strategy.
That's right. A noble approach, a
The
noble
noble
strategy.
approach. It's true. So, what is something you've learned from your 40 years in construction, from your 20 plus years at Noble Strategy that you wish you could tell your younger self?
Being patient and maintaining relationships. When you're young, you have an idea how things are supposed to go, and they don't go that way. So you want to make them right. You might push a situation, or you might work too hard to create a situation. Maintaining relationships, because you see the same people. And I think we did a good job at that. Business is business, and you get into precarious situations. But I think being patient and maintaining relationships will take you very far, no matter what industry and wherever you are.
On the advice front, you really have this mastery of words. So I think your students at NYU are really lucky to have you.
Thank you for saying that, Jackie. You've been so
Absolutely.
complimentary, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, you got a
Thank you
lot
so
going for
much.
you, Bill. Like I just keep pulling back at the surface, and there's more. It's like I can't keep up. It's amazing.
I've been incredibly blessed
Yes.
that the things that come to me, I'm able to put in place and get the drive. Yeah, I don't pray for ideas. I pray for will and drive. Like, just give me the will to want to still do this, and the drive. If I get those two things, I'll get through it.
I think if you're praying, period, the
Yeah.
ideas are going to come. You don't have to pray
Yeah.
for them. They're going to come. You have so many good ideas, but then you don't only just have the idea, you act on it and you
Yeah.
implement it and you're able to persuade other people to get on board with it. So many talents coming together. So, speaking of teamwork and giving advice to the younger generation, what would you say to anyone looking to break into construction management in New York City?
Do it.
Go do it.
Go do it. There are gonna be a ton of reasons why you shouldn't. There are gonna be a ton of people saying you shouldn't. You just have to do it. You have to do it. Yeah, I read a lot.
Hmm.
Les Brown, motivational speaker, he used to say, "Jump and grow your wings on the way down."
What's that?
And that's scary to
It is.
think. What taught you gotta be prepared. You
Mm-hmm.
take this step and make sure you don't leave this out. You do have to do all of that, but then you have to go,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to do it. Whether you get kicked off the ledge or whether you step out off the ledge, it really doesn't matter as long as you land and accomplish what you need in doing. I would say go do it.
Any advice that you can give to new entrepreneurs looking to become multi-million dollar success stories like Noble Strategy?
Order the book. I couldn't
Exactly.
resist that. I couldn't resist that.
Exactly.
Making bold moves, creating multi-million dollar success in 500 days or less will give you lessons. I have an appendix in the book. I call Appendix 54. You keep saying I like to read. 500 days is 18 months. I was reading probably 3 books a month.
You have to feed your mind. If you're just looking at nonsense, you're not going to have these profound ideas and thoughts and drive.
You don't have to do everything. You can experience some things through others. Read business biographies. Michael Magic Johnson to Sam
Mm.
Walton, Dr. Dre to Warren Buffett. I'm interested in stories and how people grow things. I read the book about Mary Kay. It's one of my favorite books, right? She didn't create that business until she was a grandmother, until she was retired. Being able to create an iconic brand. Everybody knows the pink car and knows how much work it takes. If you see somebody driving around in a pink Cadillac, they are really doing what the program sets out. So Appendix 54 is 54 of my books that I've read on the journey. It's a varied list that'll give you insight to what I'm typically thinking about. How I've only read 2 books from front to end at once. Most of the
Which
time,
are they?
I'm reading and then I'm putting it down. So I read a book on a rap record label in Houston called Rap-A-Lot Records. The guy's name is Jay Prince, very influential in the music business. The book was fascinating to me. The other book I read is about Shaka Sungor. Now he's a motivational speaker, but he was in prison for 30 years. It's a tremendous story. It kept me riveted. Only 2 books that I've read in a day, like picked it up this morning and I finished it tonight.
I know we shouted out companies, books, any people, mentors that helped you get to this place where you're at.
Absolutely, and I don't want to forget anyone. In terms of helping me, my wife, first of all, right? My wife is a PhD since 1999. Facts is all she cares about.
Smart lady.
Bottom line, she's been instrumental. We met at Hampton. I was a senior, she was a freshman. We maintained our relationship through my graduation, her going to graduate school, and everything. She's been extremely important and influential in everything I've done. I've had several mentors, some that knew me and some that didn't. I kept learning that it's important for you to get the information, whether you get it by chance or if you had to pay for it. Sometimes you can determine how bad somebody wants something by what they're willing to pay.
True.
I had one mentor that I paid $1,500 a month for 2
Okay.
weeks.
You wanted to
And
get
it's
something out of it with a high
value.
value as well.
But I didn't know any other black men who founded a bank. He founded a bank and actually was instrumental in me getting my first like 300,000 loan. It was worth it for me to know how he thinks. His name is Herb Ames.
Is he still a business coach? Does
He
he
is.
take on
He runs
new clients?
a business chamber of commerce in Trenton. There's another gentleman named Harold Epps. I have been reading Black Enterprise magazine, and they have Entrepreneurs Conference. I worked my way up, and first we appeared in the magazine. I had read this magazine as a high schooler. Then we were finalists for Small Business of the Year in 2000. We went to their conference in Detroit. They had the large business of the year, the business of the year, and small business of the year. Well, we got to meet. And the business of the year was this company who developed the technology behind Easy Pass.
Click on the front of your, windshield.
The company that he was CEO of, they had developed that, and they were company of the year. We had a lunch and he spoke, and I asked him a question. Surprisingly, he said, "We got to do lunch." That's going to take a little longer to explain. I never experienced someone being that accessible at that level. I went up to him after the conference, got his contact information. He was in Philadelphia at the time. I was in New Jersey. He invited me to Philadelphia for lunch. We started talking. He's a member of my fraternity also.
Of course he is. Everyone interesting is a member of your fraternity. Everyone who likes salmon. Shout out to Dr. Roy McGriff, who's in the same fraternity. Lift is like climb.
That's right.
Everybody's healthy. I mean, he's a 6-time black belt. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a certain set of criterion that
Like
I'm
really
seeing.
high achieving,
Very high
competitive men.
achieving, so much camaraderie and pride
Yeah.
in your school and your
Yeah.
fraternity, and that you never stop growing throughout your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not in the fraternity, but I just appreciate the core values so much.
He right away invited me and we talked, and from there we played golf. I could call him anytime and talk to him. I did not pay him to be a mentor. He wanted to share. At his level, I'm like, what can I learn from this guy? He was running a $200 million company at the time.
Amazing.
And I got access to him. I can just call him on the phone.
Hey, listen, somebody who started that still started in the same shoes as us, right?
Yeah.
Just has been able to extrapolate to such a degree. I bet you guys have had some really amazing conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those were two very influential guys.
Yes.
And then there are folks all along the way who sometimes don't even recognize that they're mentors. You just model your behavior sometimes.
Yes.
We had a personal board of advisors where the people that I'm going to call just to check with, just to talk to, just to get information from, make sure I'm on the right track. You don't always do everything right, but at least you create a structure, a program you can run. Where maybe these things will work. Another mentor, I want to mention Robert Logan. This is a funny story. I think it's in the book too. When I first met him, I had a great exchange. Another one of my fraternity brothers.
Of course.
A lot older. He came into the fraternity in 1971. He's probably 16 years older than me, so in the 70s. But anyway, had this great exchange. I said, I got to talk to you again. Can I get a business card? Because I want to follow up. He said, I don't carry business cards. I'm thinking that's strange. Like everybody in business, like you never know when business comes up. You always have to be prepared. He said, I don't carry business cards because if I get any new business, it might mess up my golf game. That's what we're doing right there. That's the whole purpose.
So down to earth, right?
He went on to say, I play golf on Mondays and Fridays, and my clients know not to call me. I said, wow.
It's got to be a balance.
Get to a place where I can call the shots like that. It's not about how much money you have.
You're getting there, no? This is the dream, right?
Yeah,
the golf game.
It's lifestyle.
Yes.
And he was dead serious. I played golf with him one time on the Monday. He's like, who was this calling me? They know not to call me on Monday.
That sounds like you can have the best conversation, best game of golf.
Yeah, he's accomplished. At his age, he still shames me when we get on the golf course. He's like, what do you need the car for?
See that? It's a mindset.
Oh, I'm not going to walk.
Of course, he's in the fraternity and he can run, walk, healthy mindset.
Pretty amazing guys. I would say Robert Logan specifically. The funny story was, I try to teach my kids about entrepreneurship. I was like, you should always have business cards. Anytime you ask me for a business card, if I can't produce a business card, I give you $5.
Wow.
So they got smart and they would wait for me, come out the shower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, be, in your
Hey,
undershirt,
Dad,
home.
you
Yeah.
got a business card? I just got out the shower. Like, this is not the way you're supposed to be using this against me. But it kind of trained in them. You should always be prepared.
Since you showed me the Blink app and we exchanged digital business cards, I have created my own Blink card and
Good.
I just recently
Love
used
it.
it a few times. I love having my digital business card readily available. So that's all you.
The marketing person, I'm glad you appreciate that. I had one marketing person try to shame me. I was on a panel with her and I said, "Oh, my card is digital." And she was like, "Oh, I still do traditional cards." Which is
Something that's on an app is staying on my phone for life.
right.
So it's
Tells me when I met you. That's what I love about it. Tells me the
exactly.
date that we met.
Exactly.
So
Bill, you get it. I've learned so much from you already.
I'm very glad, and it's gonna be more. We're gonna learn together.
Yes. The stuff that you talk about with people who've been your mentors of being accessible and being at that level that you aspire
Yeah.
to be. I feel that way for you. I really appreciate your willingness to share and your enthusiasm
Thank you.
and guidance.
Hopefully your listeners will get something out of it. This has been great. You could tell I like to talk.
Until the next chapter, have a wonderful day and see you soon.